Right, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, thank you. I've got the last 9 books of a 25 book submission up today, starting with New Teen Titans #2, first appearance of Deathstroke. A big book, a nice book, and what I'm going to do today is what I always do, and that's go through the 9 books in the submission, and I will tell you what each one of them cost me. I'll tell you what I did to them if there was anything significant, and what my great expectations were for it sending to CGC. And then we'll see what CGC gave us. So if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel, and it's good that I'm remembering to mention that and ask for that every time. I need to do it more often. So without any further ado, let's get cracking. So as you can see, it's a beautiful book, and it cost me $180. And I was expecting to be in high grade from a trusted seller. It basically just needed a couple of light presses to make it look perfect, or close to perfect. It didn't really have any ticks on it. It was presenting beautifully already, and I was expecting a 9.8 for this one back from CGC. And sent CGC expecting that, and received 9.6. So the greater notes are spine stress lines to the cover, and that's frustrating because there aren't any, and in the pictures there aren't any. I know it was a beautiful book, and if you've watched the first 2 parts of this video, you'll know how frustrating this grader has been and how confusing. So this is really disappointing, and I've, along with New Mutants number 98 from the previous video, I've now asked for my consignor to send back this book as well to me. I'm just going to give it another press and resend it, and it'll come back a 9.8. It's really frustrating this has happened, and it's just been part of the submission. This submission has been just an absolute cluster something. So anyway, my frustration aside, let's continue so you can see some more books and unveilings. Next one up, we have Web of Spider-Man number 32, Newsstand edition. I love this cover. Mike said, beautiful cover. If you've watched my videos before, you know I'm waiting to get this in a 9.8, and then it will go in the PC. Once again, this was not going to be it. It cost me $37. And the main issues were the ticks around the top staple and a bit of wear on the back cover on the bottom left corner. It cleaned up really well, and I thought it was going to get a 9.2 with a sneaky chance at a 9.4. So CGC expecting 9.2 and received a brutal 9.0. And the graders notes are spine stress lines to the cover for a 9.0 again. This is the laziest grading I have had in some time. I know they're busy. I know they're under the pump. You know, it's now, I know it's January, probably by the time you're watching this video, January 26th. You know, these were graded late December 25. Todd McFarlane books are flying through the system. I'm sure the graders are under pressure, but that's not my fault. And I feel like the graders are just really being pressured to deliver books quickly. So that's all right. Moving on to X-Men 136. Iconic cover, you know, Dark Phoenix Saga, Cyclops cover. Had this book a few times. Cost me $43. Had a few light ticks and some edge wear. There was a bit of a little light cut on the back corner, top left. I wasn't sure whether that'd be graded, if it was manufacturing or not. I cleaned up some marks, and a small crease was sort of light on the back cover. I thought it came out presenting reasonably well, expecting 9 to 9.2. CGC expecting that and received a 9.4. All right, well, graders notes are, of course, spine stress lines to the cover. It's nice to get a higher grade than I was expecting, because sometimes when you get this lazy grading, it works in your favor. But it's been a painful submission so far. So let's move on to Punisher number 5, limited series from 1986. You know, beautiful cover, part of the 5-part limited series. Cost me $28. Had a couple of ticks which were reasonably light. However, the back cover had some small rips, and I wasn't sure if it was from a jagged cutting blade or from a finger bend. So I had to sort of assume around a 9.4, maybe 9.6 because of that. So essentially, you see expecting a 9.4, maybe a 9.6, and got 9.6. All right, what are the graders notes? Spine stress lines to the cover. Moving on to Raiders of the Lost Ark number 1, Newsstand edition. This was the first Indiana Jones in a standard comic, or something around those lines. So, you know, it's got a bit of history to it. Cost me $8, a good price. and had a few ticks, basically 5 or 6 ticks, you know, so sort of moderate, reduced them a bit, lightened them. I was basically hoping to come back as 9.4, maybe 9.6, but probably 9.4. CGC said 9.4, spine stress lines to the cover. Moving on. Return of the Jedi #1. All right, iconic book. I love this cover. You know, it's also weirdly the first appearance of Jabba the Hutt as he appeared in the movies as the big pizza blob, rather than the original version. So it cost me $19 and came as a lot. Serious bends from a crunch along the spine, which I remember this. Spent a fair bit of time on this trying to flatten it all out. It left it with a few light ticks. I pressed most of the bends out, worst of them, and it came out really nicely. I was expecting 9.4 to 9.6. So CGC, and they said 9.2 with spine stress lines to the cover. Okay, lazy grading. Moving on to #2 Newsstand edition, which is the first Emperor Palpatine, I believe, in a comic. So you know, still getting these minor appearances now. Cost me $19. Had a few ticks from a light crunch. Worked out the bends on the presses because it was all I think it's in a 4-pack from memory, and they all sort of just work together. So they all have sort of bends, and some of those bends cause ticks. Expected a 9.6 from CGC on this one, and received a 9.4. Great as notes are spine stress lines to the cover. Of course there were. Moving on to the second last book of the submission, which is #3 Newsstand edition. Has a few minor first appearances in it. Cost me $19. And basically the same thing. Has 5 or 6 ticks from a spine crunch. I thought 9.6 was probably the best. I gave it a little bit of whitening just to lighten it a bit, but I still thought it was going to be limited to 9.4 to 9.6. So as you see, and received 9.4. And I'd tell you what the graders notes are, but in this case the grader's too lazy to even put spine stress lines to the cover against it. So it's just blank notes. Moving on to the last book of the submission, which is #4 Newsstand edition. Cost me $19. Had some light ticks and a small crease, and I was hoping it would come back as a 9.4 to 9.6. And there are my expectations. Sent to CGC, and they said 9.4 with spine stress lines to the cover. Well, I'm glad he checked in long enough to put the note in. So that concludes a very frustrating 25 book submission from CGC. The running profit loss will be on the screen. Overall, the submission cost me $2,000, and I received back around in the vicinity of $2,800. So there's a bit of profit in that, but the 2 big books that I sent through expecting 9.8s on failed, which is frustrating. So they'll be coming back to me for a resubmit in a future submission. And I was only expecting 2 9.8s in this submission total, plus another 2 based off the law of averages. If I'm expecting 9.6, 9.8, on average I should receive 50-50. I received 3 9.8s overall, and not a single one of them was I expecting to get higher than a 9.6 on. So very, very strange submission. I totally get that sometimes 1 or 2 things are out. This is not quite there. You make up for it there. But this whole submission has been a schmozzle, to be polite about it. So anyway, if you've watched this far, thanks for listening to me rant. I appreciate you. And I'll be back with more unboxings very soon.